Hello, everyone. I'm Katie,
And I'm Yarlin.
and this is Fae and Fables. Today, we're going to be talking about Daughter of No Worlds, which is the first book of the War of Lost Hearts series by Carissa Broadbent. We're going to be talking about a lot of really important and impactful themes today. So please note one, there are spoilers for book one of the War of Lost Hearts series, which, full disclosure, I have read books 2 and 3. So I have to keep my brain in check and keep my thoughts and my feelings in check. Um, and but we won't be spoilering. That sounded weird in my head.
Spoiling?
Spoil. Oh my god. Yes, that's the simpler word. We will not have spoilers for books 2 or 3 this week. We'll be going through books 2 and 3 each in their own episodes in the coming weeks. So be on the lookout for that if you're reading along. Also, know there's lots of stuff that happens in this book that may be hard for some listeners to hear or to engage with. There are themes around trauma, enslavement, sexual assault, violence. As we talk about this, we're probably going to be using adult language to discuss this based on who we are as people. So please note if those are things that are not things you want to hear today, take care of yourself and come back when you're in a place to engage with some of those impactful themes. Today we're going to be going through a couple of different things. One, we're going to start with our reader mind, as we like to do, which is also going to include our teehee moments, which I'm very excited about. Then we're going to delve into our therapy mind, and then we're going to have Yarlin give her theories for the future. We'll have our general thoughts. Again, I know nothing, but I do know everything that happens. So that'll be a little bit different than it usually is. And finally, please note that what we're going to say today is based in our experiences as readers and as mental health counselors. However, this should not be used as a replacement for therapy or counseling and is just for fun. So if you find that you need professional assistance, seek it out for your own needs. And I think those are all of our disclaimers. Did I get everything?
Okay, yeah, you got
Yeah.
everything. Cool.
Yes. So, let's start today, as we like to do, with our star and chili pepper ratings.
Yes.
Yarlin, what was your star rating? And give me a little bit of an indication of how you felt about it overall.
Okay, so I was really looking forward to reading this book because I really did love Carissa's other series of Serpent in the Wings of Night. So I was really looking forward to this series. And I liked it. I'll say that I really enjoyed it. But something for me that I didn't like about just the way it progressed was that I didn't really feel super into the book until 50% in.
Yeah.
It was a
That's tough.
little bit boring, I would say. So, but then after that second 50%, like the second half of the book, it was great. So it
Yeah.
really did a redemption, and I'm looking forward to reading the other books in the series. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I
Okay.
felt like I was in between 3.5 and 4, but I felt like I could not give it a 4 because it just didn't feel right. I didn't. I maybe I had high expectations, and I think that's where it's like a little let down, but 3.5, I mean, I still think that's
Solid.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, solid. I feel like 3.5, like middle of the road, a little over middle of
Mhm.
the road. And it is tough. Like if you're not getting into a book until halfway through, that's a commitment, Like
Yeah.
you're committing
Yeah.
to a lot of pages to
Yeah.
get to the point where you're really starting to get into it. I gave this book 5 out of excuse me. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Um I loved it. I loved it from start to
Yeah.
finish. From the moment it started to the moment it ended. I think, for me, I would agree there's a little bit of a slump.
Mhm.
Not I wouldn't even say, for me, like, it still kept me emotionally engaged through the building of some key relationships that we'll get into. But I definitely think in action, there was like this slump right before
Yes.
you hit that 50%. So I kind of
Yeah.
know where, like, I have sort of a similar feeling about
Mhm.
moments in this book. Um, and I just thought, like, I well, we'll get into the details, but it captured me either emotionally or in action throughout.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll be so, so curious to see what you think of the second and third books.
Yeah.
I'm excited, and that's all I'm gonna say, 'cause don't wanna spoiler it. Um, so we have our star ratings. What was your chili pepper rating?
Okay, for Chili Peppers, I gave it 1 out of 5.
Agreed.
You know, I think the romance in this book was definitely a subplot. It wasn't the main thing, like, when you read romantasy,
Yeah.
which is yeah, it's like, probably our last books have been all more romance
Yes.
driven,
Let us
and
never forget, the Dragon's Breath, which was
Oh, yeah.
heavy on the spice.
Our iconic last episode. So,
Yes.
yeah, so I gave it 1 out of 5. I mean, I did like their love scene. I thought it
Mm,
was very touching and very realistic, and as
yeah.
we were talking about this probably earlier,
Mm,
while we were not recording, but it seemed like a realistic love, and I
yeah.
totally agree. I totally agree. So,
Yeah.
that is mine.
And, like, if we're going from Dragon's Bride, where there's 2 penises and everything's wild and
Yeah.
we're, like, under the spell of, like, a mating bond, and then you go to, like, genuine tender love. Like, it's definitely a shift for the brain to try to
For
make.
sure. So, yeah.
Um, so what I'm thinking is we'll just go through, like, I'll review sort of chunks of plot and
Yeah.
then just stop periodically, see how you feel about it, and we'll go from there. So I just want to start by introducing the main characters of the book, and we're going to do our level best with the pronunciations. We do like a good nickname.
Oh, yeah.
So the main character, the female main character in this book is Tisana, and I kept just in my head calling her Tish as I was writing the notes because Tisana, there's a lot of letters, and as I'm notating, I just like to be
Yeah.
efficient. So she became Tish.
Yeah. I mean, even Max, like
Yeah,
his full
oh,
name, they gave him a
Max
nickname.
Max Centaurus, like he
Yeah.
immediately was Max. Like I kept being like Maxandrius, Maxinarius.
Yeah. I was just like, what is this name? What is this name?
Well, and
Yeah.
all like everybody in his family had a ridiculous like 5
Yeah.
syllable like
Yeah.
Roman, Greek and Roman name. So I'm gonna call them Max and Tish.
Yeah. We're Americanizing it.
We're
It's okay.
we really are. We're applying our own lenses to this. Um, and I'm gonna do my best with the pronunciations of everyone else. I will say their name at least one time. I'm dedicated. Like
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
like they're getting a full name mention at least once, and then what happens after that happens. We're gonna.
Nicknames,
But
oh, that person? Yeah, I know who
uh-huh,
you're talking about.
that
Yeah.
E guy.
Yeah.
It's usually like the first letter. It's like that one guy with the E name.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna do our best, and please bear with us.
Okay, cool.
So uh let us set the scene. So Tish is you open the book. You can't see Harlan, but she's giggling over there at Tish. But you you start the book kind of with scenes from the past, and it's Tish's and Max's respective pasts. And so I'm gonna follow Tish's um plot here a little bit, and then we'll bring Max in here in a second. But Tish is from a place called Nizreen. I said Nizreen in my head. And the first you meet her, slavers are coming into her town and conquerors are coming into her town to take everybody away to these mines where it is certain that almost certain that they will die. And so she steps forward while folks are getting rounded up and says, like, I'm worth more to you as a slave than I am going to the mines. And she is what they call fragmented. So she's half Voltane. There's two kinds of magic wielders. There's the Voltane and the Solari, and she is half Voltane, and you can tell that someone is Voltane because they have very white albino skin, white eyes, or like silver eyes, and white hair. And so because she's fragmented, she has patches of white skin along with tan skin. She has one hazel or green eye, one silver eye, and her hair is sort of a mix of like that Voltane white with streaks of black. And what I think is really interesting is in our own context, um, she looks like what I think some folks with vitiligo might look like, which I think is a interesting like choice for the author to like have body representation. I'm a huge fan of that. But she's what's called fragmented. She offers herself up to these slavers and says, I'm worth more to you because I'm a magic wielder. She like floats these butterflies around, um, and then they take her and sell her to a slave owner named Esmaris. And she works for Esmaris for 8 years, dancing and performing at shows. While this is happening to Tish, Max is fighting a war, the Great something war. Dang it. The Great,
I cannot
it
recall the name of the
starts with
war.
a S or an R. It's a war.
Samari War, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. So Max and another character named Nura um are fighting in a war, and we don't know this totally at the time when the flashback happens, but Max is a weapon in the war because he's got this mysterious weapon inside of him. And at the end of the flashback, Nura, who's Voltane, Max is Solari, Nura forces him to use the weapon, and he destroys the town and kills everyone in it. It flashes forward, and now 8 years later, Tish is trying to buy her freedom from Asmaris because he told her that he would let her go for 1,000 gold pieces.
Yeah.
Um,
And that does not run by
and
easily in this time.
if you're thinking, did the man who owns other humans live up to the expectations that he had set for
Yeah.
her about her own worth? No, he doesn't.
Mm.
She shows up with a lot of money and tries to buy her freedom, and Esmaris loses it and basically says, accuses her of winning these gold coins by, in his terms, whoring herself to
Mm.
other people, despite the fact that he sexually assaults her on
Yeah.
the regular. Like it's a very complex, like it's an interesting sort of thing that Ismaris and Tish have between them, and one that's very much predicated on like uh, Ismaris's power over her. And then he essentially flogs her until she realizes that he's going to kill her, and then she uses her Voltane powers and kills him.
Yep. Good for
Lots.
her. Good for her.
What were you thinking at this point?
I thought, it was an intense situation that was going on, especially with like their relationship dynamic. I think he sucks, like, but that's, it's, unfortunately a lot of times that's like the abusive
Yeah.
relationship, and
Mm,
and we will discuss this later in Therapy Mind, just their dynamic and the way she thinks about
mm,
him later on, where she's like, then she recognizes that he was not the best to her, but then also recognizes, there were good moments, and like,
mm,
kind of in the conflict of those feelings.
mm.
But I'm glad she killed him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he needed to be dead.
Yeah,
Um,
he's horrible.
and I like that you point out, like, we watch her opinion of him shift across the story. Like,
Mhm.
we start and she's like, "Yeah, but he protected me." And yeah, but he and then slowly as the book goes on, she's like, "Yeah, but he also beat me
Yep.
and he also assaulted me and he also like he enslaved me." Like you see her like kind of grow into her own and realize how much he exploited her and
Yeah.
how gross the dynamic was between them.
Yeah.
And she sort of relinquishes this idea that like, oh, but he fed me and
Yeah.
like kept a roof over my head. So I think we as readers like immediately are like, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
Asmaris is dead.
Yeah.
But I think it takes her a second. I think she
Yeah.
has a lot of guilt over it before she's kind of like, actually I don't feel as
Yeah,
bad
and it's
about
the
that.
distance. She needed that distance and time to really
Mhm.
reflect on kind of that situation. And
Yes.
Max, I feel like also helps her come to that realization too.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Max and, we'll talk about their relationship dynamics in more depth, but I love what Tish and Max do for each other in, like, sorting out their own history of guilt. Like,
Yeah.
they both are like, "Listen, like, you were manipulated," and we'll get into the ways Max was manipulated, but,
Mhm.
um, really helping each other see, like, you're not a bad person. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot in there. Um So, Asmaris is dead, and he's bleeding on the floor of his office with all the gold coins on the desk. And Tish is rightfully very concerned about that because shit's about to hit the fan because
Right.
she killed him. He's a powerful lord of Threll, which is one of the like territories in
Yeah, the
the book.
kingdoms or
Yeah,
something.
he's one of the lords of Threll, one of the
Yeah.
powerful lords of Threll. So, in walks in her BFF, her best friend, Serel, Serel.
Yep.
So I hope I'm saying that correctly. But he walks in and he's like, "Oh my god, we need to cover this up." And Tish is like, "You're right." So they go about, but simultaneously, she is horribly, horribly injured. Like and she says this time and time again, 27 lashes, 27 lashes. So she
Yeah.
has 27 lashes spread across her back. She has them on her forearms. She has
Oof,
them
yeah.
I think either across her chest or her abdomen, because at one point she turns and like tries to defend herself.
Oh.
um and so Cyril basically stabs him through the chest and is like, we could pretend like somebody stabbed him. And he's like, listen, we're going to cover this up real good. And he puts a thick coat on her, throws her on a horse. She's like, please come with me. He's like, I'm not going to do that. Somebody has to be here to like cover for you.
Mm.
She tries to beg him. Again, she like through like horrible injuries where she's like half realizing what's going on. He refuses because he wants to cover for her and protect her, puts her on a horse, sends her off.
Yeah.
This encapsulates or starts a long journey where she is on the horse dies, she gets on foot.
Oh, wait. Okay, so the horse gets injured because I literally highlighted this and I was like, what the actual fuck?
You're like, most importantly.
So the horse gets injured, the ankle
Mhm.
or something. Tell me how she eats the horse. I was like, oh my
She's got
god.
nothing. She's got a coat and a bag of coins.
I know,
She
but
needs
I
the
was like,
meat
oh
for
my god.
survival. I did wonder, like, because it doesn't say that she has like, does she have a knife on her or anything? Like,
What, she just took a bite out of
I
him?
don't know. She just tore into him. I don't know.
Ooh, oh
That
my
was a
god.
that was quite a moment when I
That
was
was
like,
a
oh,
shocking moment. I was like, whoa, okay.
listen.
I would have eaten some berries across the street. I don't know, before eating the horse. But that is my,
You would have gone to the berry market.
I mean, she was probably starving, so.
Yeah, so she does eat the horse. Not the whole thing. She eats as much as she can.
Some bites.
Yeah, she takes a little nibble of the of the of the horse flesh. Shout out to Fire in the Sky.
Yes. We got horses coming in and out. We might as well do a cowboy romance at this
Oh my
point.
Listen, I'm down. I'm
Yeah.
down. Um anyway, she nibbles on some horse flesh, and then she's basically dragging her sorry carcass across so many places, like the plains and the forests. She gets on a boat, and the whole time she's on this journey, she's repeating to herself in Aran, because she speaks Threlian, but she's going to Ara, and so she's been practicing her Aran like pronunciation. Um, and she's got these like specific phrases in her head that she's like gonna go up to the doors. She's gonna be like, I need help. I know Zareth Aldris, who's we figure out who Zareth is later. But he's this Aran man who has come to see her when she was enslaved a couple of times. And they sort of strike up this pseudo, she thinks of it as a friendship at first. We get into it later, but so she just needs to get to the doors of what's called the orders, which are um the two organizations that rule over the Voltane and the Solari. And she goes up to their doors and she's like, I need to speak to Zareth Aldris to join your orders. Help me. It's almost like, in Moana, she's like, you will board my boat. You will,
Oh yeah.
like, give me the heart of Tafiti or whatever. She kind of like makes her stand,
Yeah.
and then she passes out because
Yeah.
she's horribly injured. Somehow the horse meat helps her survive, and she gets to the doors. When she wakes up, she is in the sort of care of the orders, and you meet from Tisana's perspective, or Tish, from Tish's perspective, you meet Nura for the first time. Like, we've already met Nura in Max's flashback, but we meet her from the eyes of Tish, and she's like, okay, and Tish is adamant. She's like, I'm joining your club, and Nura's like, you do have to be trained in stuff. She was like, I'll do what I got to.
Yeah.
They roll up to Max Centaurius's house, i.e. Max. Nura says, you're training her. Max says, fuck you, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Nura's like, I'm leaving now, and I'm leaving you with her. And she pieces out.
And they call Tish, or he calls Tish geriatric. Mind you, she's 21. I was like, what? Why is she called geriatric? But it's because usually warriors come in like at the age of 18. I still don't think that's a big age difference. But
well, I think they finish their training at 18.
Oh, okay.
So they're like, she competes. So she competes in these trials later with like 12-year-olds. Like,
oh my goodness. Okay.
It's wild. So I think geriatric's not the word that I would use. I don't agree with Max on that.
Yeah.
But she's like 21, and she's like competing against these 12-year-olds. So there probably is a better word he could have used, for sure.
Yeah. And to talk about like his like the words he uses, he has his little catchphrase. Do you know the catchphrase that he says a couple times throughout the book?
Oh, I don't. Well, he has a few. He's like, I'm not built for this, or
I'm not made for this.
I'm not made for this.
He says that so many times throughout the book. I did not like that little catchphrase.
He's a little grumpy. He's a grumpus.
But I thought it was strange that he said that. I don't know. It's like about different situations. I am not made for this. He's in the heat or something. I'm not made for this. I don't know.
He's like, I don't do this kind of thing. And we're like, well, you do now. Yeah, Max is definitely grumpy. He's very grumpy, and he wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
And makes that abundantly clear. He's like, everybody get out of my fucking face.
Yeah.
And
grumpy old man. That's what he gives me, to be honest.
He honestly, fair enough. He is kind of grumpy, and he tends a garden at his little stone cottage, which,
I have my
listen,
feelings towards that
I'm
as well.
I'm a gardener. There's something I like about that. A man who can get in the garden and, like, grow plants, I don't know,
But
just
do
something
you
does
want
that.
that in a fantasy book?
Well,
I mean, unless he is
this is
like, someone who makes elixirs and
I suppose, yeah. No,
yes, but
he
he's
has
just
flowers
tending.
just for funsies.
But yeah, you learn later on the story behind it, but
Mm.
reading throughout, I'm like, "What is with this guy and the garden?" Like, he wasn't giving me strong, like, manly vibes that I was looking for.
Oh, no, he's definite well, and I think you kinda meet him in process, like,
Right.
he's very clearly somebody's hurt him,
Yeah,
and he
for sure.
has not healed from that
Yeah,
totally.
so you learn that
Um,
later, and then you're like, "Ah, it makes sense now.
it
I
makes sense why
appreciate
you're a
him
grumpy
now."
old man, but I think I think we kind of learn to like him in the way that Tish learns to like him. Like,
Right.
when they first meet, they're not friends. Like, they're not buddies.
Yeah.
They're like Max is like, "I don't want you here." And Tish is like, "I'm not leaving." And it's
Yeah,
sort of
she's
a battle of
adamant.
wills. Yeah.
She has a goal. She wants to
Yeah.
save like the slaves that are back home and in the other
Mhm.
lands and stuff. So she has this goal that she needs to meet and she doesn't give a fuck whether he says yes or no.
No, she truly does
Yeah.
not. And she even, like, he refuses to train her, and then she just starts trying to train herself. Like, she finds every book he has, and she just reads it, and she doesn't even really read Arin, but she just is reading about there's kind of two different kinds of ways that you can wield magic. You can, as a Voltaigne and a Solari, you can kind of just wield it based on your own abilities. The Voltaigne have more like internal magic, so it's like related to like mind control or visions and things like that. Solari is much more like outward physical magic. So Max has fire magic that's like very comes very easy to him. Whereas for Tish, it's more about reading people's emotions, which really worked for her when she would like dance and get her money. And then she can do like little she does do little like physical illusions with the butterflies and flowers and whatnot. But there's a second way that you can channel magic, and it's through something called a stratogram. And so it's these circle and symbol doohickeys that you draw in order to like channel power or make power work for you. And so she just like he won't train her, so she's like, "I'm just gonna try stratograms myself, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna." She like runs. She's like, "I don't know if I'm gonna need to run, but I'm just gonna start running around and drawing stratograms."
The stratograms really reminded me in Onyx Storm of on the things that they used to wield the magic. I
Oh, the
forget what they're called.
glyphs, I think, or
Um
runes, or
Yeah, it's like the runes and like the thing that holds the magic that helps Violet
yes.
control.
Oh,
It's like the orb. It's something.
yes, she has to hold it to channel.
Yeah,
The
so it
channel?
remind
Yeah.
it
Anyway.
reminded me of something like that where it's like this powerful thing can contain your magic or something.
Yes. And it's like a conduit
Right,
almost.
a conduit. That's what
Conduit.
it's called.
Oh my
It
god.
came okay.
We did it. So yeah, so she tries to draw these stratograms. She's like trying to cobble together her own training. One thing that you see about Tish throughout the book, but also that Max comments on several times,
Mm,
is her dedication to completing a goal no matter what. And
mhm.
she even says at the top of the book, like, "I'm not a good dancer. I don't know how to dance." Yeah,
She's swaying.
she's not suave with it. But what she does do is she just practices the steps and counts in her head
Oh, yeah.
until she gets it. And Max says, he's like, "It's like you're banging your head against a wall until something happens." And she's like, "Yeah, that's how I get shit done. Like,
Mm,
I'm not naturally talented at a number of these things, but if I just apply myself hard enough, it will happen."
yeah.
And
Wow, and that's so powerful because I feel like you
mm,
can have that way of thinking in real life things, like
Mm.
applying yourself. You may not be gifted in these certain things
Mm,
or be as smart as maybe others, but if you
yeah.
apply yourself and you have that knowledge and you practice makes perfect. But I just,
Mhm.
yeah, the way you worded that, I was like, wow, that is so like real life inspirational.
Well, and I think it highlights the fact that, like, it's not all about natural talent.
Mhm.
Like, and I think even in, like, therapy spaces, like, we help people to be able to learn emotional intelligence. We help people to, like, track emotions and learn where they
Yeah.
feel them in their body and all these things. And folks, I think, are frustrated by the fact sometimes that it doesn't come naturally, and it's like, this
Mhm.
isn't something like, sometimes you just have to apply yourself to practicing something over and over again until
Yep.
it becomes rote. And Tisana's like the queen of that. She literally, and I really like this about her, like, as a magic wielder, she's pretty good, but she's not, she I feel like in every book that I've read recently, it's always about the main character has this secret amazing power,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
like, automatically they're the most powerful wielder in the land.
Mm,
Tasana's not. She's
yeah.
pretty good, and Max helps her, and he eventually agrees to train her. She gets really good through practice, but it's through practice. She's practicing 12, 14, 18 hours a day,
Wow, yeah.
um, and just doing it over and over and over again until it becomes natural. It's not this thing where she's just like, I love in, like, in a fantasy book where, like, the female main character is, like, some, like, small town, like, twiggy bumpkin girl, and then, like, all of a sudden, she's like, "Wait a minute. I have all the power of the universe, and I'm such a powerful wielder," and then all of a sudden she's just winning at everything. And even, like, training montages would be like, "I've had a sword in my hand for 10 minutes, and I'm beating all these people." And with Tish, that's not how it is. She's like, "I'm like a regular degular person,
Yeah.
but I will just," her superpower almost is just, like, her perseverance and dedication to a goal, her absolute stubbornness that she will get it
Yep.
if she tries hard enough. Now, that's a great thing to have in certain circumstances. And what we see is that in others, you can destroy yourself with that. Like, there
Yeah.
are some things that you can't practice yourself into. So it's really interesting to see her toying at the edge of, like, what her abilities are and how far she can push herself.
Yeah. Because at some point you also have to have the um like insight of being like,
Mm.
I actually can't keep doing this because I will kind of throw myself off the edge type of
Yeah.
thing.
Like, I'll burn out. Like,
Yeah.
there's just no way, there's no way to practice yourself into every ability
Yeah.
ever. But Tish doesn't want to hear that. She's like, "I will
She's a
do it."
little stubborn.
She oh,
Is she a Taurus?
I don't oh, I don't
Is
know.
she?
When's she born? When's she born? I don't know her birthday.
Oh
I
gosh.
also, admittedly, okay, shamefully admittedly, I don't know much about astrology.
Oh really?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I'm a Leo, and anyone who ever meets me is like, "Leo." Like,
Yeah.
it, so I know a bit about it, but,
Mhm.
like, I couldn't, like, pinpoint, like, I couldn't pinpoint her star sign based on her
Yeah.
personality.
Well, now that we know you're a Leo, I'm a Libra. So just so the
Hey!
listeners can know our astrological signs.
Well, and is that, like, do they make good friends? Or, like, I know there's some that match together, there's some that
Yeah.
don't.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't think I have a Leo friend. I know my mom is a Leo and that has its own thing.
Okay, okay. Okay.
But I mean, I know we get along really well. All of my friends and even my husband are Tauruses, so I'm used to a Taurus
Really?
energy. I know that
Okay,
Libra and Tauruses get along really well. But I
okay.
think you're my first Leo friend.
Hey, okay, so I don't know all of my friends' signs, but I think you might be my first Libra friend. I
Oh.
have a lot of, like, Geminis.
Okay.
I have an Aries. I have, a Scorpio.
Okay.
Like, I'm collecting them. I'm like Pokemon cards.
I'm missing these 5.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to add more to my collection. But yeah, and my family, are all either Leos or Sagittarius,
Okay.
which I'm told is like, we're an intense crew. We're an intense crew for sure. Um, but I hope,
So
I
we think
mean,
Tish is a Taurus. Let's just
so
say that.
Tish the Taurus, that's how we're gonna, what would you say Max is? Again, I don't know.
Um, what do I say he is? I don't know. I can't tell. I don't know super detailed. I just
Mhm.
think he's a very recluse person. I
Okay.
mean, he could be very emotional. So maybe he's like a Pisces.
Okay.
But Pisces are, they're sweet too.
I mean, I feel like he does have a sweet, once you get past the grumpy,
Yeah.
it's like the grumpy and sunshine trope, except
Yeah.
she's not totally sunshine either, but like he definitely is the grumpy one.
He's definitely maybe like a water sign. So
Okay.
Pisces or something like that.
Okay. You know what? I'm inclined to believe you because I don't know. You could literally say anything. um so yeah, we're we're out here collecting all of our star sign friends.
Yeah, so she's very stubborn and
Mm,
pushes herself to the limit or
she
to no
does.
limit.
Well, and one thing you see, and like I think this is the counselor side of me, is like both her and Max just don't sleep.
Oh yeah, they
They
don't
just
sleep.
it, which is like
Self-care, guys.
literally sleep is one of the most important things you can do for yourself, and they just
But what
don't.
did you do last night?
Oh,
Let me call you out.
shots have been fired. Okay.
Kitty comes in.
Raggedy is
No, nothing with the way you look or act. You're like, I went to bed at 2 in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning.
I did.
I also went to bed pretty late too. I've
Oh
been
my gosh.
rewatching Prison Break, and we
Okay.
just finished season 3. So
You're in the midst. I've never seen it.
oh, it's so
But
good. But yes,
anyway,
we may say self-care and sleep is required in
it
our counseling
is.
space, but sometimes we don't follow it.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes life's just like that. But we can point at Tish and Max and judge them for it.
Oh, of course, because
And
that's
not
who we're talking about.
Yes. It's not us that
Who
need to hear
cares?
this. It's Tish and Max. So Tish, Max, go to sleep. In all seriousness though, they like push the limit. They will not sleep until their bodies literally like put them in a chokehold and are like shh, 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 shh. Like they fall asleep in the flower field at one point. They fall asleep like in armchairs. Like they
That's
just
really unhealthy, to be
yeah.
honest.
They fall asleep. It's so there's a part of it that's kind of sweet for me, but they like fall asleep next to each other in among the flowers.
Aw.
And then they get woken up by like stupid Nura who's like, well, isn't this sweet? I'm like, get out of here. Get
I
out of
think they
here.
both suffer from like traumatic memories and like
Yeah.
almost like PTSD,
Mhm.
kind of those nightmares that occur
Insomnia.
of like war memories and things like that. Just like their trauma that they experience, they have the nightmares. I think that's
Mm.
mentioned a couple times throughout the book.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be why they don't want to go to sleep, and that's unfortunate.
I mean, I think totally. Like you see a number of times like one or both of them is like being chased by these memories
Mm-hmm.
and they just fix that with no sleep. Which is not the way to go, and we recognize our hypocrisy and we're rolling with it.
It is not what we recommend.
It's not what we recommend. Do as we say, not as we do. Moving on. So anyway, Max, if you can't tell, sees her determination, her inability to give up, and it's like, I kind of respect that. And he agrees to train her. They start training. He has her forming all different shapes and flowers, but they have to be perfect. He's like, actually is a really good teacher. Once he like puts his mind to it, he's in it. And there are several kind of like events or things that happen that solidify their bond more and more. And this is the part where I think is like emotionally rich for their relationship, but like low on action. Like it's like there's this
Yeah,
it's like
this is the slump part for me where it was
yeah.
hard to kind of because there just wasn't much going on and totally
Mm.
understand. There were training, but there wasn't any intense training. It was like the practicing of making the butterflies, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, let's move on.
Well, and I think there was an opportunity here for like some like close hand
Yeah.
combat. Like, you know, like that those scenes where it's like you get too close to one another and the tension.
Yeah.
Their relationship really does build over time. Like it's
Yeah.
not this we see each other from across the way and like a week later we're married. Like they literally you are with them as they build these
Yeah.
little puzzle pieces of their relationship over time.
And he's denied it for a
Oh,
while. Like, he would reject her, I think,
mhm.
sometimes, and just didn't wanna go that far,
Well,
so
and I think you see with even Tish too, like they both are like, I don't want to do this. And at one point, Max says, "Is like I'm the king of denial." He's like they both recognize that in themselves, which I liked because usually in like when they're in like denial town in fantasy books, they just never recognize it. They're like, I thought about saying something, but I didn't, and I'm not sure why. Both Tish and Max are like, I see it, and I know that I am turning my back on it because I want to. And I'm like, okay, like eyes wide open, sure. Um, but they take a trip into the city, and the young queen of Ara is on the steps of the orders building, and she kills this lord. I think his name like Savoy or some such thing. Um, and sort of it's a world building moment where you kind of learn about the role of the queen and the wars and stuff, but it's building their Max and Tish's relationship. And then Nura asks Tish to go with them to the lord that they killed, his son's house. They ask Tish to roll up with them and basically scare this lord's son man boy and into submission. She agrees, and Max is like, well, obviously I'm coming because we know that like they're starting to build a bond and etc etc. And so this is a moment that I thought was really pivotal and cool for Tish and Max, which is they go to this house, and Nura and the other warriors, the powers that be, are trying to figure out how to subdue this lord. um and they're intent on just like blowing up the whole building and killing everyone, including the civilians inside, and just destroying it. Tish and Max are like, yeah, but there's innocent like children in here. And Nara's like, war is hard. And Max and Tish are like, that's not gonna work for us.
yeah.
So they combine their powers, and in order to do that, they have to like share this mind space, which we know that Max is so very against because Nura manipulated him eight
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago. And so it's this key moment, I feel like, where Tish is like, please trust me. Trust me. I'm not here to hurt you. We need to save these people. And Max is like, fine. But and he sort of like carves out this like part of his mind, and he's like, but don't go looking around in there. And so they hold hands. His one of his secret powers is like a giant fire serpent.
I
Um
love that. When
oh
that came out, I thought it was so
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I I think it's really cool. I'm like battling with myself, future books. I can't say anything. But I think seeing his power sort of at its fullest with this like fire serpent
Mhm.
um is really neat. And she basically guides the fire serpent with her mind magic
Yeah.
um to the lord, so that the warriors know where the lords are versus where the rest of the civilians are. Of course, the Lord Sun Boy man dies or is murdered by Nura and friends. Um, and but the civilians, many of the civilians are saved, and it's this
Mm.
bonding moment for them. But it's also this moment I think you see where Max and Tish start questioning Nura and the powers that be. I mean, Max is already questioning it. He's like,
Yeah, that the
fuck
order
this
is
whole
bad.
thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think Tish is starting to be like, you were just going to murder all these people? Like, I think the cogs are starting to like turn for her
Yeah.
about why this might not be the best idea. What were you
Especially
Yeah, go ahead.
especially her, like, seeking out to kind of be part of the order and really wanting to
Mm,
train and be a warrior there, so she's probably starting to have second thoughts on kind of their ultimate what they do, their motivations and things.
Yeah. And you see that she talks about this. She has these like internal battles where it's
Mhm.
like I want to work for them and like because they're going to give me the power to go to Threll and free my friends, but then also I, I see what they're doing and I don't like it, but do I use them to grab power and then sort of like take my own. She's very um she has a lot of critical thinking around how to maneuver, which she's had to build, through like her enslavement, like
Yeah.
and this dancing that she would do. But she's very calculated about how does she appear to people and when does she decide to like show her anger and not. And there was a really interesting scene, I think, where Max is basically like, "Aren't you mad? Like, why aren't you angrier?"
Mm.
And she's like, "Of course I'm fucking angry." Like, and
Yeah.
I can't just bandy my anger around. Like, and I thought it was such a powerful look actually at like women and women's anger. And I think Max represents what I think like I see sort of this like very like male perspective, like, well, just be mad, like get mad. And it's like it's such it was such a powerful message, I think, for Tish to be like, I can't afford to get mad. Maybe
Yeah.
you can get mad, but I've never had enough power to get mad.
Yeah.
And I've seen that. I've felt that as a woman, but I also have seen that in spaces where it's like I have to choose when to show my anger and I have to be thoughtful about it. Like I just can't throw it out into the world.
Yeah, versus a man who could probably be angry at any time and that is what is expected
Mhm.
and it's okay for them. But for
Yeah.
women it's not really okay for you to be mad or to be anything but cordial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like there's this pressure to be pleasant
Mhm.
even in the face of unpleasant things.
Yep.
And you see this with Tish so many times. She just swallows her rage
Mm.
in lieu of trying to get her the ends met. It's
Yeah.
like if I get mad now, maybe my friends who are enslaved don't get help. So like,
That's a tough decision. She's
yeah.
making these tough decisions solely at 21.
Oh, at the geriatric age of 21.
She's lived a lot of lives.
Yes.
But yeah, I thought Max's power was really cool.
Mm,
And, we see where he kind of gets that from later in the book. And I thought that was a cool realization of like, because
mm,
he kind of kept his power hidden. Like, I think it's mentioned a couple times that he was able to like have this little fire in his
mhm,
hands or something, but then this huge fire snake comes out. And
mhm,
I think when they were training, this was something that I highlighted, that um, they were training together or something, and he made like a little snake, a fire
mhm,
snake, and then she then turned that snake into butterflies. I thought that was so
mhm.
cute.
I like I think their magic playing together,
Yeah.
it does something to me. I don't know. I don't know. It's almost a teehee moment for me when
Yeah.
like they I just feel like there's a level of their interactions and their as they know each other more, they have a level of like knowing and intimacy that is so touching to me, and it helps keep away from things like miscommunication tropes and things that don't like. So they share like looks between each other, or they'll say something but it's like the other person can read the person's face. It's like in their magic, in their emotions, in their cognitions, like they're just vibing back and forth and I am here for it. Um, but we so there is they go to this place, they subdue the Lord, and then Tish has her trials, her magical trials. And the first trial is very like physical magic where you're making different shapes. She's competing against 12-year-olds. she kicks their asses and then is like gloating the entire time. She's like, "Fuck you guys." and and Max is like, "Girl, relax, they're 12." He's like, "It's not like you got them, girl. You got them real good, and it's probably because they're 12 years old."
Yeah, I mean, hey, she wanted this for a long time.
True that.
Let her enjoy the moment.
Let her have her moment. You're so right. You're so right. The second trial, on the other hand, is much less cute, much less funny, um, and she's sort of taken away for her own private
Oh yeah.
second trial, where these three Voltaine, Nura, oh, what's his name? I wrote it down.
Zareth?
Yes, Zareth. So Zareth, Nura, and a third Voltaine surround her without her knowing. They sort of like shroud the arena in blackness or
Oh
wherever she
yeah.
is. She has to put these three balls into this basin. Spheres. I shouldn't puts these three spheres into a basin. And while she's trying to do that, she's getting attacked mentally and physically
Mm,
by three different magic wielders.
that
And
doesn't seem fair to me.
we went 0 to 60. We went from making triangles with 12-year-olds to like serious mental and physical
Yeah.
like attacks. And in her classic Tish way, she's like, "I don't accept defeat. And fuck y'all, and I'm gonna do it." So she has a really hard time. And one of the things that like sticks out to me is Zareth. So they try to like mentally manipulate her to like not complete the task. And Zareth says, "Come here and get on your knees." And like I wanted to scratch him in the face when I like it's like, "How dare you, sir?" Like, yuck.
Yeah.
Yuck. And so she doesn't listen to him, thank God. And she gets the spheres in the basin. And then at the end, Max is like, "What the fuck was that?" And literally, like, I think that is what he says.
Mm,
What the fuck was that?
yeah.
And again, it's this example of Max getting to throw his anger around and Tish trying to be really like she's trying to maneuver socially and like take into account the power in the room. And Max is just like, "Why don't you get angrier?" She's like, "I can't get fucking angry because I
Yeah.
don't have enough power to be angry." And something that I really liked about the interchange after that was like, she basically was like, "Don't ruin this for me. Like,
Yeah.
stand down, dude. I have shit. I'm like playing chess and these fools are playing checkers and I need you to like smarten up for a second."
Mm.
And so, and to Max's credit, I liked this. He was like, "All right." He's like, "I'm pissed, but I'm going to just look at the ground and
Yeah, because
I'll let
you
you."
don't gotta go and save her as much as you want
Mm,
to. You don't need to save her. If she needs additional help, then she will let you know. But you don't gotta go in and be the knight in shining armor because she didn't
nope.
ask for that.
No. And I really respect Max for seeing it and being like, "I got to take a step
Yeah.
back." Because I think some of the like more brooding characters that I've been reading in books lately would have been
Yeah.
like, "You're my woman." And it's just
Oh yeah.
just like, "No, I'm going to get mad." And like, I think this is a great example of like Max letting her have her power and not like steamrolling
Yeah, not being a
the situation.
possessive male, even though sometimes we like that.
See, here's the thing. We do like it. The thing is, I want him to be upset about it because that's what shows his commitment to her.
Mhm.
And I like that he like gets mad initially and was like standing up for her. I still want that. But then when she says like, "Dude, stand down," and he does that, that whole thing was what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
Because like, don't ruin this. Don't ruin this for
Yeah,
her,
he listened and understood.
which we love to see. Um, So she passes her trials, and there is a party for celebrating the passing of the trials. And this is like the classic scene when you have a fancy party and everybody gets dressed up. And Tish, the baller that she is, decides, "I'm going to wear a dress that's so scandalous and so revealing that one, everybody's going to see my hotness, and two, everybody's going to see every scar that I've ever received from a slaver ever. And she does this very purposefully. It's a statement. The back of her dress is very, and she alters the dress to be very low cut. She has it off of her shoulders so that you can see across her chest and just every scar that Ismaris ever gave her. And she does this as a statement, as a way to show everyone at this party what slavers are doing and to curry their favor into helping enslaved people in Threll. And this was interesting to me because there's sort of two sides to this. One is sort of the empowerment of deciding like how to tell your story. And she is very, very blunt about what happened to her. She's like, I was enslaved. I was beaten. I was raped. I was exploited. I was made to do things that I did not want to do. I almost died. Like, she states these facts in this way as sort of this blunt, like, slap in the face to everybody at the party um, about her story. And so I find a lot of power comes with that, like you deciding to tell your story and how you want to tell your story. And there was, and I can't remember her exact statement, but there was something about like, I'm using my body sort of again to like get these people to pay attention to me. And there was sort of like a feeling of like exploitation too, I think. Like, you'll only pay attention to me
Yeah.
when you see what they've done to my body.
And I think she says something, she says, or mentally, she's talking about, she says, like, look at me, look at my scars, or something like that. I do remember her mentioning the
Mhm.
look at me part.
Yeah, like, and I think she repeats it. Like, in
Mm-hmm.
her head, she's like, "Look at me, look at me, look at me." Like,
Yeah.
she wants to draw people's eyes, and it's for a purpose. And at what cost, girl? Like, at what cost? Like,
Yeah.
you absolutely have every right to share your story and to share your truth and to show people what you care about in the way that works for you. And when when are you doing that and it fulfills you, and when are you doing that and you're giving pieces away? Like, it's like you're putting your own emotional stuff on the back burner
Right.
to make a point. And I genuinely believe that she contends with this a little bit. Now ultimately it's her body, it's her story, and I think she should be able to tell it however she wants. um and I think with so many things that Tish decides to do, there's a cost. And she is the cost every time. It's like every time she swallows her anger, there's a cost to her. Every time she makes a bargain, there's a cost to her. Like, it's you can see that there's sort of this flagrant disregard for her own self in some of the ways that she walks through the world. Anyway, she makes a statement, makes a splash. Everyone's looking. Everybody's paying attention now. And even Zareth, who has been like, I think of like sort of like politically very helpful, is like, we will do our best, and like is saying all the things, but like it's becoming clear that has no intention on actually acting. Um she like dances with him and like whispers in his ear and is like, I see what you're fucking doing. I'm out here playing this game. He's like, real recognizes real. I see what you're doing. We out here playing games. They kind of see eye to eye for the first time. Like, we're dancing around each other
Yeah.
just like we're dancing around
And
this
doesn't
room.
she kind of confront him and like, "Oh, do you remember
Mhm.
me?" And I think he pretends that he doesn't.
I don't know. No, I think that was the slaver later on.
Oh, okay.
I think his deception lies more in, he keeps sort of vaguely saying like, we'll do our best. We'll do our best. And I think his biggest lie to her is like, we I did my best to help you, but like couldn't
Mm,
really do couldn't really do much more than I did, which was to just visit her while she was enslaved and talk to her.
Right. Okay, so
And I
that
think
wasn't Zareth.
she yeah, the way she confronts him while dancing is she like, "I think you could have done more, and you
Right.
chose not to.
Yeah.
You saw a young enslaved girl enslaved at the hands of somebody," I think she says, like 2 or 3 decades older than her,
Mhm.
or 3 times her age or something, and you saw that, and you decided that the best you could do, huge air quotes, is just talk to me. Like, I'm pretty sure if you wanted to do something more, you could have.
Yeah, and he went
Um,
back for a reason, right? He went to look at the sights and
well,
enjoy something.
yeah, I think there's, like I think he has, like, kind of a creepy sexual attraction to her too, which is,
Yeah.
again, why I think he's, like, get on your knees, like, there's
Yeah.
just this, like, sadistic,
Yeah.
gross thing.
Mhm.
Um, so she makes a statement, and then her and Max are outside for a little while, and one of my favorite kind of things between them is, um, they Max one of them brings up no, I think it was Tish who brings up the idea of a dance. And she's like, "Will you dance with me?" And he's like, "I have one condition, don't count your steps." And it's like it becomes this thing between them, like, don't count your steps. Don't use this as a manipulation or try to calculate, just be yourself. And she's a terrible dancer. Like, so they like sway around awkwardly, but like it's this other moment between them that brings them closer. And then when they go back to the cottage, she's trying to take her dress off, and it's too complicated and it's all tangled.
Can you
And
help me out?
she's like, "I tried so hard for a few minutes to get my dress off." And, like, she doesn't say this in the book, but I see you, Tish. Come on.
There was, like, something complicated, like, there was, like, some stuff
There was stuff
all
tangled,
yeah.
and she had to alter the dress herself.
Yeah. I
Obviously,
thought it
it
was
was
so funny.
too complicated. And so she's like, "Will you help me get my dress off?" And then he, like, has to, like, use his teeth at one point. His, like, little lips are near her neck or whatever.
Why
And
his teeth? I do not
I don't
remember that.
like it's like a twine or something, so he has to
Oh,
like
okay, okay,
yank it.
okay.
It is like actually useful to the dress getting off situation. But there's this moment where like maybe they're gonna
Right,
kiss.
where his lips, like, touched her neck or
Oh
something.
yeah. And then she like breaks it apart. She's like, makes a little joke, and the moment the spell is broken. And
Yeah, missed opportunity.
honestly, yeah.
We could have
And
had it.
we we could have had it. And I think from Max's POV, because it's her, she makes the joke, so she kind of breaks the moment. And I think in Max's mind, he's like, "I'm not going to exploit her the way other people have exploited her." Like,
Yeah.
she really has to be the one to make the move, because like
Yeah.
he's not going to put out there that he's only wanting to be her friend for sex, or I get it. And like, Tish, you joke too much. Like, there was a moment. So after that, Tish gets an invite from Zareth to come and see him in his office. He's like, "I have a question for you." And Max is like, "Don't go up there, girl. It's not going to be good." And she's like, "I think I'm going to go up there." And he's like, "Please don't." She's like, "I'm gonna," because she's Tish and she's stubborn. And you find out later, Max can't say anything more to her about it.
Yeah,
Like,
there's a blood oath.
yes. So you're in the moment. He's like, "Please, please, please." And I was like, "Why aren't you telling her more
Right.
about your past? Like, why aren't you saying anything?" And you find out later they can't.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Just don't promise them anything.
Yeah, say
Don't."
no to whatever they have to offer,
Yes.
even if they offer you the world, say no.
Exactly. Exactly. And like tries to warn her in every way he could possibly. And she says, "I'll be fine." She gives him a little forehead kiss. She heads up to the top of the tower. Um Surprise, they have a terrible offer for her.
Yeah.
They're like, "We're gonna put this weapon inside of you, and um you can like keep another war from happening by being this weapon for us." Tish does say, she's like, "Well, if I'm gonna do that, you're going to do a whole lot of things for me.
Yeah.
And later on, she does say, I didn't ask for enough, and I don't think she did ask for enough.
And she did like a long list of
Oh, it was
things.
3 pages.
It
It
was
was,
3 pages of like
mm-hmm,
requests and like expectations. Even if she were to die, like they still
mm-hmm,
need to fulfill these things. So she
yeah,
went in detail and was able to even request for Max to be released of any kind of things that ties that he has.
yes, yeah. And that's like,
That was sweet.
that was very sweet. And I think you see with him like how much it means to him, and then you see her desperation when she's like, why didn't you go? Like, oh, it's this whole thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
we will get into it. But she basically, she goes into this deal. In exchange, they're going to help her go to Threll and free the enslaved people. They're also going to release Max from all his obligations or oaths and things. And her term has like a specific end date. So I think it's 5 years, or when the war ends, or when they no longer want her in service, whatever comes first. So this ultimately has a time limit of 5 years max. Um, and they're like, they do a blood oath over it. They go bingo bango bongo. They take her to the basement or the roof. I'm not They take her up or down. They take her to some secret place, and they put into her body this weapon that's called Richet. Um yeah, Richet. Actually, Richet is terrifying. Um Richet Richet's not messing around.
Yeah.
And it turns out that Richet is this like sentient weapon
Mhm.
person magic.
Like a demon, I would say,
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, it's like it almost feels like possession.
Yeah.
Um and immediately Tish is thrown into like she has all these visions. She sees Max's past.
Yeah.
She's like going through
Because
it.
the initiation of receiving this kind of alien like form when you become their host is apparently really tough. So when you receive it and when you're trying to take it out, it's apparently really difficult, and sometimes some
Yeah.
people don't survive.
Yes, and what you find out is they've been secretly testing her
Mm,
to see if Richet would accept her, because Richet has to accept you.
yeah.
Like, Richet will kill it, and they call Richet it. So I'm gonna use the term it,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's either Richet or it. And so they took her blood at one point and tested it, and Richet liked her blood. So she's like trying to contend with this new reality, and now is having these conversations with Richet in the back of her mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Max is horrified because,
Yeah.
shocker, Richet was the one who was possessing Max when he destroyed that city.
Yep.
Also, Richet took over his body and murdered his family,
Yeah. That
all
was
of
so
his
sad.
siblings. It was so fucking sad.
Yeah.
Like he tried to wrest control from Richet,
Mm-hmm.
but his whole family was slaughtered. And Tish sees these
Yep.
memories, because Richet is kind of like replaying them. So it's a really hard time getting acclimated. But eventually, like, Tish has a way of like keeping Richet kind of in check through this like web in her mind, and she like snips these threads of the web when she needs to regain control. But Richet hates that shit. Richet's like, don't push me to the back. It's this very it's an immediately sort of vitriolic and like control violent relationship between them. um However, once she's kind of under control, once Tish has got things sorted in her brain, they, as promised, go to Threll, um, and and with the mission of freeing these enslaved people. During this journey, uh, you're seeing Tish figure out how to basically manipulate Richet, and Richet is manipulating Tish and threatening to murder Max if Tish doesn't follow directions. They come across Tish's the guy who sort of enslaved her and sold her to Asmaris,
Yeah.
and she murders him. There's all these like interactions where Tish is trying to get a handle on how to interact with Rashay.
Yeah, and you see that Riche, or as you come to learn, she was like almost like, or like it was like in love with Max. Like it had
Yeah.
this relationship, and it felt really betrayed when,
Mm,
Max kind of took it out of her, and just like that betrayal. And you see like an emotion that this creature has, even felt betrayed even with Tish. So you see that throughout, and I guess that's why I'm like, Richey's not that bad, but it is.
well, and that's
Like it has
yeah.
emotions, you
It
know?
it does. It does have emotions. And I'll be interested to see what you think in the second and third
Okay,
book.
future book
The
situations,
future, yeah.
right? Okay.
I'm really trying to contend with where we are,
Yes, where
book
we are right
one.
now.
Um, and so yes, I think your instinct is interesting. I think your instinct is going to come in handy later. Dun, dun, dun. So and I do want to pause and just say there is a sex scene. Like va va voom finally.
The only one in the book, which is okay.
The one. Well, is it? As you all know, I like more spice rather than less.
Yes.
But I get it. Like, this is a slow burn. It's not,
Yeah.
this certainly is not what I would call a romance book. That
Yeah.
it, like, on the romantasy spectrum, it definitely leans heavily on fantasy and includes
Mhm.
romantic
Mhm.
elements. But we do get to the promised land. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
There's lots of moments that I think are really great. Um, and Rashay is pissed.
Because I think they both try to block her out.
Uh-huh. And they do in the moment, but then later Rashay figures it out and
Feels betrayed that they did that.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. So they when they get to Thrall, they have to like infiltrate. Now because Asmaris is dead, his son Azine is now in power. And they basically have to infiltrate this party, and Tish has to go back to her dancing ways, and then shit kind of hits the fan. Um sh- Azine tries to kill Tish, and then there's like Rashay kind of takes over. There's a lot of chaos that happens. What were your thoughts?
I thought that scene was really intense, and it's, probably one of the bigger part of the scenes throughout the book of action. So, like, Tish comes in and, like, kind of drops. She wears, like, this really beautiful dress. She drops it when she arrives to this place. And then, actually, this Azine guy is actually horrible. And
A terrible, horrible human being.
yeah, I think something happened. I don't remember how it got to the point where he went to go and like then started like hitting her and like dragging
Mhm.
her. So it got to a really intense part, and she was part of the distraction in this situation in order to free the other slaves for like
Mhm.
Max and the other people to do. But Max was worried about Tish and what was going on.
As he should have been.
Yeah.
And it was such an interesting, it's like a mirroring of the two
Mhm.
ends of the book. It's like Asmaris beating her
Yep.
in one of the very first scenes, and then his son, I think, being even more cruel
Yeah.
in sort of the end part here.
Yeah.
Um
Was it that she mentions that she killed his dad?
yes,
That's where
she
maybe he
killed,
got upset.
yeah, she killed Asmaris. Although Azim Azine and Asmaris had a contentious relationship, so I don't really understand what Azine was getting upset about.
Yeah.
But he's also a terrible person, so like,
Yeah.
who
Someone
knows?
just coming to try him in the middle of everyone, you know?
You come into my house
Yeah.
and try to not get me to be a terrible enslaver person.
Yeah.
Uh
And I remember throughout this moment,
mm,
Riche kept checking in of like, okay, do I come
yes.
out now? Now? And then
Now.
she's like, not yet. So I think, it was maybe part of the distraction and the whole kind of idea and little story that they were trying to do, until she finally was able to say, "Okay, you can come out now," and then take over and fuck shit up.
Oh yeah, Rashay is like chomping at the bit. She's like, "How about now? How about now?" And Tish is like, "Not now, not now."
Yeah.
And we see that at the very end when Rashay does sort of get full control, um, it becomes much more of a problem than I think Tish anticipates. And yeah, I'm curious, what do you think? Like, what do you think about the ending? What do you think? I mean, I'm hesitant because I know we have thoughts and theories, but what did you think sort of as we wrapped up the end of the book?
Um, I'm really eager to seeing the what the next book has in store and telling more about the story of Rashay and how it affects, Tish, because it almost like takes over and has this like disassociation where, Tish
Mm,
is not able to get control again. So I think maybe that's something that is explored in the second book of like just the push and pull of
mm,
that. And maybe does Tish think about, how she's going to handle this after this? I'm curious to see how it goes from here,
mm.
because like what other stuff comes up, like what other issues. She freed all the slaves. They were able to
Yes.
free like thousands of slaves or hundreds of slaves, I think.
Like goal, like
Yeah.
achieved.
Yeah.
I mean, at a high cost, but goal achieved.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see where everything goes, and I'm telling you, this last half of the book was pretty amazing. So I really
Okay.
like that.
All right. Well, that wraps up sort of like our reader mind review of the plot of the book. A lot of rich stuff in there. We're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about our teehee moments, our thoughts and theories, and our therapy mind ruminations. So come on back and join us. Hello, welcome back to the second half of our Daughter of No Worlds episode. In the first half, we went over our reader mind, went through the plot, had all our plot thoughts,
Yeah.
and now it is time for a couple of different things. First, we got to have our teehee moments, our
Oh
little
yeah.
like made us kick our little feeties or felt a teehee kind of way. Then we are going to go through our therapy mind, and I have a couple of topics sort of picked out for us that um, stuck out. And then last but not least, we have theories for future books. This one's going to look a little different. Yarlin's going to register her theories. I am
Right.
going to feign ignorance and nod and smile and not give anything away because no spoilers. So let's get it rolling. Yarlin, what were your teehee moments?
Okay, so in this book, like we know, the spice is not so, um, prevalent in this
Mm,
book,
yes,
but
that is correct.
there are a lot of swoon-worthy moments.
We love it.
I, for some reason, I'm not a fan of Max as a kind of MMC, or at least he's not
Mm,
like a shadow daddy, someone
okay.
who's like morally gray that I usually would go for. But
Okay.
I do like him in some aspects. So I like that at some point early on their meeting, he called her, and thus our Thrillian princess has spoken. So
Ooh,
I like that he called her a princess.
call me princess. Yes,
So
I am royalty.
I think this was like after some time of her like not really having too much dialogue with
Mm,
him or something, and maybe she was able to speak her mind at some point. So
we love to see it. Go for it, girl.
and something that I think she mentioned a couple times throughout the book was his smell. And I think in many other books we see the smell described of men, of some the men in the book.
Mm.
So she says he smelled like ash and lilacs. So the ash part, I don't know if I would be attracted to someone who smells like
You've never
ash.
just put your face in a fireplace after the fire's gone out and just inhaled?
Like, it reminded me of, like, someone who smells like cigarettes, and I think that's gross.
We can put that with horse flesh. Although I do think horse flesh smell worse than
Worse
ash.
for that.
But I that's such a good point. You're thinking about cigarettes. I did not think about cigarettes. I thought of like, because he's a fire wielder. So like
Right.
I almost pictured the smell of like burning paper, or
Mm.
you know when you're like in a bonfire or like a fire
Oh,
outside in a
okay, I
summer
see what like
night,
a
a
smoky.
smoky,
Could she have said smoky instead of ash?
maybe, I think that might have helped, or like
Yeah.
a burnt wood smell.
Yeah,
I don't know.
cedar? Like, we
See, oh
talked about this
yeah, like
before,
burnt
I think.
cedar. I think burnt cedar is a thing, right? We could make that into a candle.
Yeah, I
So,
like the lilac part because he
mhm,
obviously tends to his
he's a
garden.
gardener.
I just wasn't connecting to the ash.
Okay. I feel like that's fair. Like if I were picturing cigarettes, I don't think I'd be like, yes, the smell of Newport Lights and flowers.
So there was, again, like, not many teehee moments, but there was, like, an inspirational quote that Tish said, saying, "Men want power because it makes them feel good. Women want power because it lets us do things." That spoke to
Mm,
me in many ways.
yes. That's like a soul tee. Like
Yeah,
that's like a
yeah.
let's get them good.
Mhm. And, especially as women, I feel like that speaks to us even
Yeah,
more. So,
definitely.
love that. Um, in one of the scenes where she's, like, wearing that, like, fancy dress and she's, like,
Mhm.
dancing in front of the people, he says, "I was no longer looking at a woman, I was looking at a fucking goddess."
Oh.
So that's when I think she was, like, she dropped the dress and she was, like, naked in front of them.
Yeah.
Um,
Which, like, thank you for upgrading me from princess to goddess. Thank you for
yes.
noticing
Ah,
that the
I
more you get
love
to
that.
know me, the more you see my ethereal nature.
Yes. So, once he started seeing these things, I'm like, "Okay, I dig him. I
Yeah,
dig
you're like,
him."
I could see it now,
Yeah.
but just don't smell like cigarettes.
So I think that he says this other quote, it reminded me of a quote that I really love from, like, Joker or, like, Suicide
Mm,
Squad,
okay.
that I feel like it's like a funny quotable quote. So he says, "It's easy to die for someone, but it is so much more valuable to live."
Mm,
So the quote that reminds me of Joker or in Suicide Squad where the Joker is talking to Harley Quinn
yes.
and he's like, "Would you live no, would you die for me? No, too easy. Would you
To
live
live for
for me?"
me.
And I thought
Yes.
that was, like, so cool, and I'm like, was that copyrighted?" But
You're like, did you steal that? I don't
But
know.
I think the idea of, like, you dying for someone is the easy
Mm,
way versus you living
living
for
for them.
someone, because I could live for you, and you're everything about what I
Ooh.
do. So, yes, that was the end of my tee moment.
Those were your teehees. I had a whole slew of teehees.
Mm.
They're bodacious. They're teehees of all kinds. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to highlight a couple of my faves. So the first one is when Tish and Max are in the water practicing magic, and they like get in their undergarments. It's never like in a bathing suit or in their underwear. It's like they're underbloomers. They're in their under things. Um, and uh, Tish is getting out of the water, and she turns around and she says, "I turned around to see Max standing completely still in the water. He looked like he wasn't even breathing, his searing gaze hurling an arrow through my chest, the intensity of it paralyzing me. What?" I wanted to ask, but the force of his stare was so strong that the question died before it left my lips. I hope I hope that whoever did that to you died a terrible, painful death, he said at last, words hissing like steam. And I hope that if there is an underworld, they suffer there forever. And then she says warmth rose to her face and she
Oh,
realizes he's
yeah.
talking about her scars. I am a sucker for the "who did this to you"
That's true. Yeah.
thing. Like, you see their pains or their scars, and they're like, "Who did it?"
Yeah.
And I think Max has a nice take on this because usually it's, "Who did this to you? I'm gonna go murder them."
Mm.
But every time he kind of her scars are brought up, he is like, "I hope that terrible things happen to them, and I hope you were the one to do it." Like,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
kinda like, "I want you to be the one to watch the light die in this man's eyes because
Yeah.
you deserve that." And there's something so hot to me about that. Like,
Yeah.
you don't wanna take my death away from me. Like, if as Maris is the one who, like, whipped Tish, Tish gets that death, and he
Yeah.
recognizes that, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, sir." Recognizing the strength, and he says and many of my other teehees are referencing his references to Tish's strength.
Oh, okay.
Um he says, "The way I look at it, you didn't forget what you were. I think you remembered, and I hope no one ever has the fucking audacity to tell you otherwise."
Oh.
This is referencing a moment where Asmaris, like, she tries to buy her freedom, and he goes, "You forget what you
Oh,
are."
yeah.
And so Max is like, "Don't you ever fucking forget who you are because you're so
Yeah.
much more than this
Oh.
fool says you are."
I love that he was uplifting her.
Yes, and those are many, like, those are where
Mhm.
many of my teehee moments came from.
Yeah.
I will highlight one more, or maybe two, because I really liked both of these. Uh, um, so there's one part, where she's in that, like, red dress at the
Oh,
event,
yeah.
and he's, like, taking the dress off of her, like, helping her get the dress off, and but he's
Uh-huh.
being, like, very tender and gentle with his touching, and, like, you could tell he's, like, lingering. Um, and Tish says, "I was no stranger to touch. It was a professional tool, one of the few weapons I could wield to keep
Mm.
myself alive. Before, it had always been a demand, an instruction, a means to an end. But not this. This was a whispering caress that reached past the scars on my back, past all those ugly hurts, something that was only about the here and now, one that asked for nothing. How long had it been since someone touched me in that way? With
Oh.
purposeless affection."
Oh.
And, like,
Yeah.
just the thought of her, like, being like, "This touch is just for me. Like, this is just because
Yeah.
it feels good." And I think you see that in the continuation of their sex scene, like, when they basically check in and he's like, "I want you to know, like, I don't want anything from you." Like, he's like, "I want this because I want you,
Yeah.
not because I want, like, sex or I'm trying to, like, take advantage."
Mhm.
Um And then, there was a mention he talks about there was a primal sense of relief in the weight of her against me, something like some missing puzzle piece that had been restored. I just like the use of the word primal. I just
Oh,
anytime
yeah.
there's a primal something, I'm into it. And then the last one, they're sparring, and this is also a classic. He turned on his heel, flinging my own force against me, pushing us both against the wall. Our breaths
Ooh.
panted and mingled into the air between us where our staves collided.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. That tension was building.
we love a good, like, training montage where, like, somebody gets pinned and your,
Yes.
like, faces are, like, 1 millimeter apart.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just that caused a tee for me. And also just the sex scene was a whole tee moment, but
Yeah.
I don't think we need to quote that whole thing. So those are our tee moments. Now let's take a look at therapy mind. And as with all of the books that we review, there are so many options for therapy. Like, we could unpack so much. There's so much here. Um,
Mhm.
and we wanted to try to highlight things that are either like larger themes or things that come up time and time again. So the first one that I think is worth addressing is enslavement and dehumanization. You start this book with Tish being sold into slavery, and so much of her journey is about her experiences while enslaved. And this sort of has a broader theme of, like, dehumanization, not seeing people as real people. And even that quote, "You forgot what you are," not who you are, what you are. It's this objectification. So I'm curious, how did you see this coming up in the book? And then also, how are there potentially some ties in clinical spaces around dehumanization?
So in the book, it did come up with just the enslavement and that kind of abusive type of relationship that they had. And I have some quotes that I will like to mention. The complexity of these type of relationships, and obviously there is a form of enslavement, whether it is in the mind, or just like the tie that you have in emotions with this person. So Tish says on page 28, this was the man who gave me so many scars, who took away my freedom, who crushed me and bent me and beat me. But he was also the man who remembered my favorite color, who once stayed up with me for hours after a bad nightmare, who had smiled down at me with an odd sort of pride the day I had demanded my freedom from him. So, what do you think of that quote?
There's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
I feel like that's when we talk about the nature of abuse,
Mhm.
this is a distillation of why abuse is so hard to get away from.
Yeah.
It's because there are such dichotomous messages being sent to people. Like, I remember your favorite color,
Yeah.
but I hurt you. Or I'll stay up with you for hours when you're sick, but I'll assault you. Like, and it's very hard for
Mm.
the brain to contend with those two things happening at the same time,
Yeah.
and to contend with the fact that just because someone is kind to you in one moment or shows affection in some way or shows support, it does not mean that you deserve to put up with or that you deserve to be subjected to other abusive actions.
Mm.
It's not a there's not a tallying system, but I think so many times, like, for folks who are experiencing abuse, that's what it kind of is. It's like, well, how bad is this?
Right.
I have to, like, make a calculation
If
about
that's all
how
that you've
bad.
experienced, you don't know what the differences is or what a
Mm,
healthy relationship is. And that's something that she kind of goes back and forth with throughout the book, where she has different feelings about him, and then as time goes on, then she starts to realize, yeah, that he was not the best to me.
yeah, well, and it's an unlearning, right?
Yep.
So I think it can be easy when you start books where either like enslavement or significant abuse has happened over a long period of time. I think it's easier. It's easy as a reader to like sit back and be like, come on, why are you defending them? Or why are you
Mhm.
like, there's a judgment we cast about this. And it totally negates the fact that if this is the way you have lived and related to someone for years or maybe your entire life, it is much easier said than done to see the harms and to make a decision for your safety or for your well-being.
Yeah, and another quote that she says a couple pages after that is, there were a million moments that I might have seen in his eyes then, moments that I shared with a captor or a lover or a father or some warped combination of the three. So you see that it's
Mm,
like there's such a a line there that she doesn't even know the blurred lines of this relationship and what this person has meant to her or what she thought this person meant to her.
yeah,
Um,
and it's so hard because when you look back, you're like, well, they taught me this, or
right.
this is something that's a part of me that they brought into my life that I love. Like, you can quickly see in the way that Tasana's, story is written, that she has very compelling reasons to have fond memories of her enslaver and of her abuser, um, and you can slowly see her deconstructing that over time, and, there is, I think, something really powerful about kind of the things she recognizes and says toward the end of the book as opposed to what you see in the beginning. Were there any other quotes or any other pieces?
So in this other quote in page 179,
Mhm.
so this is when her and Max are kind of talking about this again later on throughout the book, and she says, "Not always. He was." My voice trailed off. How could I even describe what Ismaris was to me? All of the twisted, uncomfortable shades of our relationship. He was kind sometimes. I thought he cared for me in his way, but it was only at the end that I realized he loved me as a thing belonging to him, not as a person.
Mm.
So,
This one is such, I think, a powerful one
mm,
when we think about how folks often get love and ownership mixed up. People think that by belonging to someone, that that means that they are loved by someone, and that's those things are not synonymous. And when you attempt to own somebody or own their actions or own their body, that's a form of exploitation. And so when we think in clinical spaces about folks who um have experienced this kind of objectification, it's so, so important to understand where those messages came from. And I will tell you, some of those messages come from romantasy books, right? Like some of those messages come from movies and media that and you and I have talked so many times about the like touch her and die.
yeah.
Like there are so many tropes that we genuinely enjoy
Yeah.
and find hot or find, attractive or whatever. And as mental health counselors, I think we have more tools to be able to separate out what is what is something that's playing out in the fantasy realm that we can like sort of lean into this because it
Mhm.
exists in a place that's not in our day-to-day lives. And then how can we spot this kind of behavior in the real world space
Yeah.
and recognize when it's toxic. Now, everybody has their blind spots, and counselors spend a lot of time thinking about what makes for productive, healthy, and like mutually beneficial relationships.
Mhm.
And I got to tell you, we love these tropes in romantasy books, and not all of them would make for that in a real world space.
Yeah.
Or you have to find a way to do it with consent. Like if ownership stuff is your kink, there are ways to discuss that, to communicate that, to have boundaries, to have safe words. Like there's
Mhm.
just needs to be more structure if you
Yeah.
want to be able to do something like that. But in these books, it kind of just gets bandied about because you can somehow have a partner who wants to own you and somehow loves you and doesn't overdo it, and
Yeah.
like that can happen in a way in a fantasy book in a way that we don't see in
Yeah.
in the day-to-day space.
And it's instilled in us, I think, since we're little kids, right? With all the fairy tale movie and the princess movies. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say the network,
No.
but you guys know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So it's like you watch these movies, like, I mean, we've talked about Beauty and the Beast before and things
Mm,
like that. So a lot of those kind of themes are instilled in us since we're children, and
yeah.
there comes to a point where you don't realize what is appropriate or not until you
Mm,
learn about it later in life.
mm.
So it's just very interesting, but we
It
still
is.
do find the romantasy book tropes really great.
Yeah, I can do both, right? Like I can be like, I'm into this to read about it, and
Right,
also what behavior would I never accept in my
exactly.
in my day-to-day
It's like being
relationships.
cognizant of, like, okay, this is
Mhm.
fantasy, this is not real life stuff,
Mhm.
and just being able to understand that.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, and this kind of moves us into our second point, but Max and Tisha's relationship, I think, we can see a little bits of tropes here, but there is something very realistic about the way that they develop comfort and safety with one another. I'm curious, was there anything that stuck out about their relationship, the way they approach each other that we can kind of see in the real world space, or how do you see that relating their relationship versus relationships you see in counseling?
Their relationship did seem very real in the aspect of like, he was solely her trainer. There was no like enemies to lovers like we
Mm.
usually love to see.
You're like,
Um,
really did miss that. I want to highlight that. I wanted more enemies.
yeah, so it was just like they were both training and then slowly with building trust and like being honest with each other and just learning. I think that's like
Mm,
almost building the friendship, which is ultimately what we would love to do in the real world is build like friendship and trusting relationship with someone before you get romantic with them.
mm,
And unfortunately, it doesn't happen sometimes,
mm.
dating apps, you know.
Well, and I think regardless of what order like the sort of like friend to sexual relationship pipeline
Mhm.
happens, or even if you do like, have sex on the first date or whatever your sort of order of events is,
Yeah.
I think the coolest thing about Max and Tish is that they learn each other. And
Yeah.
so it's the learning of each other. Like by the time you get to the end of the book, they're like sharing nonverbal looks. They can like read each other.
Yeah.
And I think what's so powerful about that is there's a sort of soul comfort that comes with that, where with so many like dark romance, like the danger is a part of it, and it's like, I got to be honest with y'all, like I'm not trying to be in danger. Like in my relationship, like
Not
in
in
my
real
real
life.
life relationships, like safety is sexy, like
Yep.
knowing someone, having deep abiding bonds with people is, it can be very fulfilling. And so I think that there was a sweetness about their relationship, that I think is juxtaposed from a lot of relationships that you see in the romantasy space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, and yeah, in real life, we don't want the enemies to lovers, to be honest.
Well, or even like bully kink stuff,
Ink.
like your high school bullies. I'm seeing
Yeah.
like a lot of books about like bully romances. It's like
I
you.
mean, it's funny because I feel like you're told as you're growing up when a boy is picking on you,
Mm,
that means they like you, so maybe it stems
yes.
from that.
I mean, I don't doubt it. Like
Yeah.
that sentiment to the bully
Mhm.
romance pipeline is probably pretty strong. And just for anyone who's wondering, people picking on you when they like you, not
No.
normative. Not
Nope.
that's a toxic society thing.
Yeah, no, we want someone who is sweet to you,
Mhm.
who does nice gestures to get your attention and be able to develop a real relationship with you, not someone who bullies you. Do not accept that.
Yeah. Well, and again, if you're gonna lean into something like that, it should be like in a kink positive, sex positive way. Like
Right.
again, boundaries, safe words. If you're gonna do
Mhm.
some of the more like danger, fear based type
Right,
things,
right.
you really have to do it within a consensual,
Yeah.
safe container. So I do have one more thought for our therapy mind stuff. And it's not so much something that I think um uh it's kind of encompassing something that I don't think you often see in fantasy books, or romantasy books, which is the relationship between Riche and Tisana. Um and I think readers may be tempted to say that Tasana's experience is reminiscent of what used to be called multiple personality disorder and now is called dissociative identity disorder. Now, like, we want to be very clear, the real lived experiences of folks with DID and Tasana's experience different. Uh can't be diagnosed. You know what I mean? Like we're not going there. And I think something that we can kind of extrapolate from that or pull from it is the role of dissociation more generally. And dissociation is essentially when someone's brain, in an attempt to protect themselves, sort of steps back from the reality. Sometimes there are memory gaps, or folks might cast their attention to a particular like site or point in the room or other things, but it's a mental, a neurological stepping back from whatever's going on, that often leads to gaps in memory. And I'm curious for you, Yarlin, what do you see in the clinical space around dissociation, or what do you think is important for folks to know about dissociation?
So with dissociation, I mean, there are moments where, um, when you like not even talking about DID and not being, if you're not diagnosed with that, there are moments where you dissociate in life where
Mm,
maybe things are overwhelming for you. Like, let's say you're in a chaotic environment, maybe a family environment, and sometimes you dissociate, your mind goes elsewhere. Like, that's
yeah.
another way people mention dissociation is like, oh, my mind was elsewhere type of thing, because
Mm,
you're so whether it is triggered or overwhelmed in the moment that you just check out,
yeah.
you go to another place. So obviously when you talk about the actual diagnosis of DID is a very
Mm,
much more intense thing. Usually the individual has gone through very traumatic things in life, or they have to
mm,
put these mental barriers and protections for themselves
mm,
of like different identities
mm,
that fit their protection in that moment in time. So that is, sometimes it comes up in the therapy space, dissociating from life and feeling, and a lot of times when people have like panic attacks, like you dissociate
yeah.
from your surroundings. So being able to understand the difference between a panic attack and things like that, you understand the symptoms, and dissociation of your environment is one of them. So
Yeah,
that's how it comes up for
absolutely.
me.
I love that you highlight the difference between like the diagnosis of DID, dissociative identity disorder, and dissociation. I
Yeah.
think I mean, and I think I can speak for both of us because you just kind of spoke to it, but um, we see dissociation as sort of like more common and more like I think you would see more people experiencing dissociation
Right.
than you would see someone experiencing dissociative identity disorder. So recognizing that there may be folks who are experiencing dissociation don't even know it, and being able to help folks label that. Okay, so that is our therapy mind. Those are just a few topics that we chose. As always, these are just fun things that we're bringing our clinical expertise to. It's not a replacement for formal diagnosis. We recommend that if you need formal treatment, that you seek that out and that you don't use this as sort of your source of information for how to understand your experience. Um, and that leaves us, lastly, but certainly not leastly, to future thoughts and theories. I recuse myself. No spoilers here. What do you think is going to happen, Yarlin?
Okay, so we were obviously left with a bit of a cliffhanger in a moment of trying to figure out what's going to happen next, regarding Max and Tish, with their combined power, and now that Zyreth now sees them as this like dual like power source,
Mm,
that can be used in further battle. So that's what I think maybe the future books are going to be like, other battles or war things that maybe like, she is bound by blood to serve
mm,
them, the orders for a good amount of years. So I'm
yeah.
assuming Max will also be tied into that somehow, I guess.
Okay.
Um, so maybe against their will. That's what I have in mind with that. Um, let's see. I also had an idea of, there was a moment where it was quoted, his hand slipped into his pocket and retrieved a piece of parchment which he slowly unfolded.
Hmm.
Is this a foreshadow? And like I wonder, I don't know what this piece of parchment was about. Some letter?
Hmm.
Um so I clocked that and I wrote that down, and I'm assuming it was never talked about again, so I'm assuming it might come out later. And, just by your body language, I can tell I might be on I'm hot
I,
right now.
I don't know anything, okay? I'm over here shrugging and just looking around, okay? Nothing happening in my brain.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I had in mind. I know that there will be just a continuation of exploration of Rashay and
Mm,
Tish's relationship and, like, what their power will continue to look like. Because I mean, she's really powerful now. So
She's kind of the
I'm
boss.
I'm really excited about the next two books. So that's something to look forward to in our next episodes.
Yeah. So we're gonna find out sooner rather than later
Yes.
what's gonna happen, because our next two episodes are going to be about books 2 and 3 of the War of Lost Hearts series. So if you liked this episode or you really enjoyed the book, please come back as we explore the final two books in the series. As always, if anything was triggering today or anything was difficult to listen to and you're feeling some kind of way, make sure you get the care that you need, and seek out professional help if that is something that you need to do. Also, if you're feeling generous and awesome, feel free to follow us on Instagram at Faye and Fables Pod. You're always welcome to reach out to us via email at fayandfablespod@gmail.com. And feel free to subscribe and write a review for our podcast. Reviews are really
Yes.
helpful.
Let us know how much you love our podcast or any other ideas, any book ideas you want us to talk
Yeah.
about and review. So we're open to all suggestions and looking forward for the next books.
Yeah. Bye,
All
everybody.
right, bye.